Charles, welcome back. You're still in a remote location. This is a new one we will not reveal. How are you tonight?
I'm doing very well, Jason. Thanks for having me back on. It's been a pleasure to not be in New York City. And the more time I spend away from New York City, the more convinced I am that it's actually an insane asylum.
Yeah.
It is run, and the art department, I think, has outdone itself once again. But across what used to be a great country, we are being run by maniacs
Goofballs.
who do not have our best interests at heart, who indeed have spent the bulk of their, quote, careers as criminals stealing from the public coffers and enriching themselves. Each of these three people had nothing when they began their lives. And today, each of them has at least one mansion. And it's preposterous. I mean, I'm reading, of course, I'm really in quite a remote area, but I have access to the internet, and I've been patrolling the internet and reading these different stories. And around the world, we have people who are selling. This isn't disinformation or misinformation. It's bold-faced lies. The governments around the world are coordinating an effort to sell lies as truth on a host of different topics. We've talked, I think we were fortunate to jump into the whole Claudine Gay, who should be expunged from Harvard, not simply demoted to a full-time tenured professor. The whole academic scene around the world has destroyed whatever credibility it once had. And now I hope Bill Ackman's project that is going to go in and look at all papers published by, I think, starting with people from MIT. I think we need to have a concerted effort around the world to sift out the garbage. And sadly, it's not, I understand garbage coming out of political science departments, or if there were a white studies departments and stuff is very subjective. What I don't understand is how supposed scientists have gotten peer-reviewed papers published on scientific topics, which should be checkable. And that further, now we're learning that not only can you hire somebody to write a paper for you as a professor so that you can not perish, so that you can publish, you can also, apparently, there's a black market in getting editors at these peer-reviewed journals to write positive reviews of your articles. I mean, if I were president of Harvard, I don't know what I'd do for starters. I would want an independent team of people to come in and tell me just how bad is this rot. And the people who are covering it up, including members of the corporation, chairs of these different departments. I mean, I don't, as somebody who went to Yale, my primary loyalty of the two schools is to Yale, but I don't look at Harvard with animus. I want Harvard to restore whatever luster it may have had. But you can't do this making excuses now for the head of the diversity, equity, inclusion plagiarism program, and her husband, Lord knows how much of his work is plagiarized at the University of Wisconsin. We seem to have a whole bunch of people who really like to wear those fancy robes at graduation, but are not interested in teaching students, and are certainly not interested in advancing the frontiers of knowledge, even though we have much greater tools to do that today. So, I mean, I'm looking at this, the mainstream journalism profession is dead. They just don't understand it yet. It's absolutely dead. Why would you waste your time reading the New York Times, the Washington Post, even the Wall Street Journal today? It's filled with garbage. Why would you work your ass off, either as a student who's, let's say, has no help from parents? Why would you work your ass off to get through a program at Harvard where the president is merely demoted to making $900,000 a year, when it stands revealed that her entire scholarship is just fraud? Why would you want to be associated with that university? I got an email the other day from Grace Church School. This is a place that is charging $62,000 per kid to go to kindergarten, from somebody who made sure to tell me what her pronouns were, the head of fundraising asking me for money. You don't need my money. You're charging parents $62,000 a year to teach kids, the colors of the rainbow, and 1+1 = 2. It's see Dick, here's Dick, meet Jane. It's just fucking crazy.
They're meeting to discuss corporation vaccines and the presidential search, Charles.
No, it's ridiculous. I haven't read, prior to the Claudine Gay stuff. I wasn't reading my alumni mail at all. I think I may start telling people that I didn't go to college. So I don't have to take shit from people who are going to tell me stories about Harvard and Yale.
Well, there was, I tell you what, there was a whole thing there about you can pay for your dissertation. I don't know if they're doing that at Harvard, but it seems like that happens all over the place. Have we heard anything yet about Tucker Carlson possibly interviewing Putin?
It makes sense. I mean, as you know, as our viewers know, I think you've had positive interactions with a bunch of journalists out of Russia. I have had extensive dealings with journalists around the world, and the standards I see of journalism in Russia are just so much higher than what it's not saying much, than what you get out of CBS and NBC and ABC and Fox. So I think to me, the fact that nobody in the mainstream media has gotten on a plane, perhaps a private plane, to go over and sit down with Putin and say, listen, we know what the deep state thinks about you, because they're basically inside our newsrooms, and they're inside social media, and they're inside telecom and everywhere else. We want to hear from the horse's mouth. Why did you do this? What was the rationale for the special? We'll give you as much time as you need to tell us why you did this, because there seems to be a coordinated effort, particularly originating in the US and the UK, to make sure that nobody understands what Russia may be up to, and to position Russia as a perpetual enemy, so that we can continue to stoke the war machine that is basically pulls the strings of Congress and the houses of Parliament.
Yep. Well, we've got more nonprofit shenanigans happening. There was this story here from the Epoch Times talking about a dark money group plowing millions into the Joe Biden campaign. Charles, I think your work on the Clinton Foundation and some of these other foundations that we've looked into, what you've really revealed is kind of like an entire underworld of economy that maybe when they created income tax, this was the secret plan. We'll make these NGOs, and then us powerful government type people in the know will control all these NGOs, and all the suckers will pay taxes, and we'll use these things to do whatever.
Well, in fairness, there was a congressman, I think, in the Midwest somewhere named Reese, who did it, REECE, I believe, who chaired a commission in the 50s to look at abuses of not-for-profits, because way back when the top marginal tax rate, personal tax rate, was above 90%, this is exactly what you're talking about happened. People would donate their stock to private foundations and take a huge deduction, typically for appreciated securities, so they'd actually get cash into their pockets. And then they use that pool of money to go ahead and fund mistresses and fund shenanigans. There were, of course, decent people who were running these things well, but I think it's gotten to the point. It's just, whenever I am asked to play a game or get involved with something, I like to understand what the rules are. And if I feel that the rules are not going to be fairly administered, or worse, if I feel that there's an inside game that I don't know about, I don't play the game. And that's what we have here. We have connected politicians. We have powerful donors. They pay to get what they need out of government to make sure that they're not ever actually prosecuted to the full extent of the law. You look at the treatment that Trump is getting for trying to shake things up. Every book in the library is being thrown at him, along with a whole menagerie of animals. And I think when you look at what he may have done in all this, there's precious little crime. On the other hand, the crimes of the Clintons, the crimes of the Bushes, the crimes of the McConnells, the crimes of the Romneys. It's not simply a Democrat-only crime spree. It's dynastic political families who have figured out that for paltry sums, they could basically have amazing influence. All they need to do is to threaten to stop something good from happening, and then they get paid off. Or alternatively, they could just threaten their political opponents. And the medium that is used to grease the wheels are these leaky charities, in quotes, charities that no one really polices. They figured out that it's the IRS has to decide to refer a matter to the Justice Department, and the Justice Department has to decide whether or not to prosecute. And they could very easily say, we're not going to prosecute, and there's nothing you can do about it, really, except raise a ruckus, which I think we're doing now. And I do think, that story you put up there about a dark web of people supporting Biden. Who is going out and buying the Biden brand legitimately? We were walking down 6th Avenue months ago, and some collection of idiots, you asked one of them, do you have buyer's remorse about Biden? And this person went into like a crazy dance and started yelling at you and all this kind of stuff. But who knowingly thinks that this pudding head, this arrogant, corrupt pudding head, who spent this weekend apparently at a swanky restaurant celebrating Hunter's birthday?
What?
This guy is just tweaking his nose at the common man. He's for an 81-year-old to think that by putting on Ray-Bans you're cool. It's just ridiculous.
Charles, this thing was called the United States House Select Committee to Investigate Tax-Exempt Foundations and Comparable Organizations, and it was led by a guy named Cox. Carol Reese was the minority something from Tennessee.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Do we need another one of these?
Again, a select committee is an excuse to do nothing, study something to death. I have lost confidence in Congress.
Wait,
I
Charles,
just
look at this.
At this stage, if you're going to sit here as Bitch McConnell and say that the approach you want to take on solving the immigration crisis is to have an up or down vote on a bill that you can't read, what kind of fucking lunatic would ever agree to that?
No, it's terrible. Real quickly, though, let's look at this. The final report from this thing in the 50s said, although the promotion of internationalism and moral relativism by foundations concern the committee, it saw their concentrated power as the more central threat. Even if benign, this power posed a threat to democratic government. The Reese Committee's report, submitted in the midst of the ultimately unsuccessful efforts to censure Senator Joseph McCarthy, failed to attract much attention. McCarthy's fall led to a discrediting of all efforts that smacked of red baiting. Look at that. So Roy Cohn was very involved in that McCarthy thing, and this seems to have brought down this committee that I never even heard about until you brought it up right now. It's funny, Charles. I have a feeling there's some lawfare going on there.
Well, what was the actual date of that report?
It says that this committee was doing its deal from 1952 to 1954, so I guess sometime in 1954.
So before I was born.
And then they
before
haven't
I
looked
was
at
even
it
a
since.
concept.
But isn't that interesting? They had the same concerns then that you had now, and by the way, it's being used for exactly what they feared. It's undermining democracy by allowing rich people to save money and get tax deductions by donating to things that ultimately destroy our rights, pay losers to interfere with elections and do all kinds of, immoral, dangerous, undemocratic crap.
Right. Well, when you look at this, as I've been doing independent work on another area, when you look around and you say to yourself, okay, how profitable is a really successful company today, right? And all of us who have been in the private sector beat our heads against the wall, and you if you're looking at your revenue and your expenses, if you're making for every dollar of revenue, if you're putting 20 cents in your pocket, that's a heroic effort, right? Most companies, very well-known companies, big companies, struggle to get a dime of profit out of a dollar of revenue. Apple's an exception. They're up there in like 20, 30 cents. But and that's for every dollar of recognized revenue. And a company like Apple or Microsoft or this Facebook, these successful companies, they don't say, oh, I'm Mark Zuckerberg. I'm going to let my executive vice president of stealing just hive off, an amount equal to the revenues of the company and not put it into the company. You don't let people do that. There's a lot of attention on making sure that all the revenue goes inside the company. On the other hand, in charity land, particularly in international charity land, you can skive off tremendous amounts of money. It's my supposition, for example, that the Clinton Foundation, the stolen grant money is probably multiples of the actual reported revenue of the Clinton Foundation. And I think that's probably the same is true for many of these international grift operations, particularly anything that has anything to do with hurricane relief or volcano relief or natural disasters, anything that's far flung. There's a high, all across the world, there's a high likelihood that nobody actually knows how much money was supposed to have been put in the charity. And of the money that's reported in the charity, you can probably steal 60 to 80% of it by overbilling either for expenses or for capital expenditures or both. And nobody wants to do anything about it. At the same time, you got that fucking asshole Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and whatever that guy's, Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi saying the solution is to tax the rich, where the rich aren't paying their fair share. No, the solution is to enforce the laws that are on the books against charities and to make examples of dynastic political families who are looting the treasury to enrich themselves. That's the way to get this shit done. Not say, well, we need a select committee. No, you need people to come in walking tall style with a gigantic baseball bat, figurative baseball bat, and open up the books on the Clintons and the Bushes and McConnells and the Bidens and the Obamas. Let's just see just exactly how much sacrifice these people have made over the course of their political service to each of us. It's disgusting.
What about Eric Adams' plan? 50 Cent has now said he's going to have to vote for Trump because Eric Adams is so stupid. I mean, he's incentivizing people to come here and giving out. Why doesn't he give me a debit card with $53 million on it?
Eric Adams needs to just shut the fuck up, pay his fines on his rental building, which apparently somehow this idiot managed to score enough equity to be able to buy a rental property somewhere in Metro New York that at last report had uncured violations, multiple uncured violations. I don't need a lecture from this idiot. There's another story in there that the team that beat up the policeman, when you and I were walking, we were doing our walks, I think both of us noticed near Madame Tussauds on 42nd Street somewhere. I don't know where that is exactly.
Yeah.
But we noticed this vacant building. I think it was a McDonald's restaurant.
Yeah, that's the migrant place now.
There are all these people who were not anxious to have your camera pointed at them,
right?
Who were congregated, who were clearly not from New York City. They looked to me like many of them were African, from the continent of Africa, recently arrived.
Yeah.
And, this idiot was virtue signaling Eric Adams. And we can't forget that there's an ongoing investigation into just how much foreign money was sent to him to get him elected in the first place. A lot of it coming from, of all places, Turkey.
Right.
This is a man who improbably is mayor of New York City. He spends all of his time getting his suits dry clean and going to fancy parties with donors and coming up with one goofball idea after the next, which seems to be the case across America in the big cities. The stupidest fucking ideas come out of these mayors and governors. And instead of ridiculing them the way Saturday Night Live likes to do against Republicans, they're glorifying. I mean, you have this congressman, Ilhan Omar, who got caught on tape saying that her goal is to prop up, get money sent to Somalia, and then to work on the reignite the project to create a greater Somalia. And this idiot had the rules of the House changed so she could wear that turban.
I hated that.
She's not been honest about who she really is. There's investigative work that says her father changed his name. She's not been honest about how she came into the country. And all we got to do in the mainstream press nonstop with Scarborough is to go get Trumpy, go after Trump, Orange Man bad. This is, I think the mainstream public, the voting public gets it. They're watching what the persecution of Trump. They're watching the glorification of goofballs, crooked goofballs who are stealing from the public treasury. They're watching this exploding debt and deficits. They're feeling the pain of inflation. They're looking at the United States being humiliated around the world under this simpleton, this corrupt simpleton who probably couldn't keep a job as a used car salesman. I'm referring to Joe Biden, of course. And then Kamala Harris. I mean, she's going, instead of fixing the border problem, she's currently on this project now to glorify abortions. And abortions, these are very tough decisions to make, I think, if you're a woman, and in particular. And, I think it's the kind of stuff that it should be. The mantra was safe, legal, and rare. The Democrat Party wants to make abortions possible right through the day of conception, which is barbaric. And, this would not be the first person I'd send around the country to argue for abortions. Right. And she recently, she's claiming that she needs more responsibility. She doesn't get enough credit for her accomplishments. The only thing this person has been able to do, I think, is to use government service as an excuse to have a nice mansion with her husband out there in California. I mean, name one piece of legislation that Kamala Harris got through as a senator. Just one. Name one accomplishment as Attorney General in California.
Did you see this video?
How did her career begin?
Charles, did you see this video of James O'Keefe in a disguise? I don't understand the disguise, but this guy says that everybody hates Kamala Harris. He apparently works for Joe Biden and can't recognize James O'Keefe.
Yeah, I mean, Kamala Harris is preposterous. I mean, to the extent, the limited number of times I've been in Washington, D.C., having to interact with people on the staffs in Congress and Senate, and to a lesser extent in the executive office building, you'll meet these people and they don't actually do anything. What they'll say to you is they'll say, well, I care about this issue deeply. I don't give a shit what you care about. I care about cutting the deficit and debt. I care about getting out of a state of perpetual war. I care about attracting capital to this country. These are things that you can look at, hard facts. Doesn't matter whether you care about the deficit. Get the fucking deficit under control, both parties. Get the debt down. Get jobs back, create conditions of stability, financial stability, so people want to keep capital inside the United States of America. That's what I care. Of
reducing the debt, Charles, it seems like Speaker of the House, he's not as stuck to, cutting costs before sending money to other people as he seemed like he was maybe a week ago.
Again, they're outgunned. I mean, the purpose of the House of Representatives has evolved to become keep them so fucking busy that nobody has any clue what the hell they're doing on a moment-to-moment basis. Every House member has to campaign for re-election every 2 years, really constantly, but there's an election every 2 years. Each House member tends to sit on a whole bunch of subcommittees and is jockeying for, to become chair of a subcommittee or a committee, because in that capacity, they get more paid staff and they have more ability to reach out to donors whose pockets, who could then send contributions to grease their pockets. So I think the House, unless you go into some kind of a war footing, people they love these omnibus bills that they can pass without reading, because it's on those bills that the lobbyists can attach amendments that fatten the pockets of the people who are of their clients. That's what this game is all about. It's not a serious game. It's high-tech looting is what it is.
That's right.
As Clarence Thomas said.
Speaking of war footing, Charles, Reuters is saying that even like an hour ago, the U.S., this is saying that we intend further strikes. What's up with that? Just telling them what you intend? It's the stupidest thing in the world. Also, they said that because they were talking about it for so long, everything they bombed had been evacuated. So we're really sort of just wasting bombs just to get ready to buy more bombs, I guess.
Look, I think this administration, the perfect metaphor for this administration is either the chimpanzee or orangutan cage in Central Park. I don't know if it's still the way it used to be when I was a kid. The first time we went, whatever, I forget which animals they were. They're just throwing shit at each other long distances in this place. That's what Washington D.C. is under Biden. And it is unacceptable. You have Lloyd Austin, and Biden so on top of our war effort that Biden claims he didn't know that Austin was in the hospital with, apparently a pretty serious operation. We have the executive branch deciding that they don't have to tell Congress anything. They'll just do what the fuck they want to do.
Yeah.
And
Charles, let me just stop you for a second because we're out of time here on YouTube and we're going to make our way over to the sponsor exclusive segment. People can join us there in less than 5 minutes on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. There's a new episode of Web of Deception. So if people aren't yet members or if they missed that earlier today, now's a great time to become a sponsor. Catch the rest of this show with Charles and then watch Web of Deception. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.